18 or 20 potential viable candidates from the Republican side. Will the media ignore them and just talk about Jeb Bush and just talk about Mitt Romney? Will they ignore the others unless someone forces their way onto the stage? And he said, it's interesting because it is different. There is a different approach to media online and elsewhere now. But also you were dealing with a different circumstance then. You had a sitting vice president of the United States. So that's different than having a former governor who has been out of office for a number of years, in the case of Jeb Bush. And so I wondered, they call these guys the establishment candidate for a reason. When we talk about the establishment, we talk about Jeb Bush, we talk about Chris Christie, we talk about Mitt Romney, and for a lot of conservatives across America, when you say the establishment candidate, that is not said in a complimentary fashion. In fact, it's considered derogatory. But let me give you an example of where I worry that there is an effort to railroad the Republican nominee. Former Florida Governor Jeb Bush will speak at the spring gathering of a big, giant Republican National Committee retreat. And what they do is they have this meeting for donors for the Republican Majority Fund. It is a fundraiser for the Republican Party. And the Republican Majority Fund specifically puts money aside for Republican Senate campaigns. This is down in Boca Raton, Florida. It'll be in March. And they've invited a couple other Republicans, Cory Gardner, United States Senator, Tom Tillis, United States Senator, both of them rookies. Both of them have been United States Senators for 3 weeks now? And Jeb Bush to be there. So he skipped the meeting out in San Diego, the RNC's meeting, and he skipped the Iowa Freedom Summit. But you get all these rich folks together that can contribute, and of course Florida is his home state, in fairness. The meeting will be held there. But he has said he's considering a presidential bid. They put a PAC together. They start raising money. The question is it appropriate for the Republican National Committee to invite Jeb Bush there? Why not Chris Christie, who I consider also to be established? Why not Rand Paul? Why not Marco Rubio? He's a Florida guy. Why not any of these folks? Could it be, is it possible that the presidential preference of the Republican National Committee is Jeb Bush? I don't know. Maybe I'm stretching it, but it seems to me that it does. It seems to me they are already trying to stack the deck in favor of Jeb Bush. We'll see. Jeb Bush, by the way, this is interesting because there was a headline yesterday on The Hill. If you go to thehill.com, they talked about Jeb Bush's secret weapon. His secret weapon in a potential White House bid, the article reads, is his wife of 40 years, Columba Bush. She would be the nation's first Hispanic First Lady. And this could be the secret weapon. Here's the interesting part. Why even bring this up? I think wives can be a great asset. In some cases can be a detriment. And remember John Kerry's wife. No offense, but she's not exactly the ideal candidate's wife. But they can be a great asset. But the interesting thing here is the discussion. This article was saying Columba Bush would be a great asset, would be a great secret weapon in a race for the presidency. And yet, when you talk to people behind the scenes, I'm in D.C. and we talk to folks all the time. I'm on Capitol Hill. We're wandering the halls. We know a lot of these folks. And when you talk to them, the one thing I hear from everyone, I've said for 6 months, I've said, Jeb Bush is in. He's running for sure. The one thing that I hear over and over and over from people is, I don't know, Tim. His wife doesn't really like it. His wife really does not enjoy this. They've had a daughter who has had some personal problems, and I'm not criticizing Jeb for that. It can happen in any family. But the general thought is that the wife is concerned that the spotlight will be on, that will be uncomfortable for the family. As a Bush, they know when the pressure turns up just how unpleasant it can be. And so the general thought out there, among the people in the know, among people that know the Bush family, say, if he doesn't run, it will be because Columba really doesn't want to. So I thought it was great irony to have this article yesterday published on The Hill that said, oh, she's the secret weapon. Because in general, people think she may be the reason he doesn't run. We'll see. We'll see. Oh, the reasons to run or not to run. And I asked a lot of people because nobody is officially declared. You know, they all speculate, well, I'm giving it serious consideration. And so everyone I spoke with this past week in Iowa, I talked with Ted Cruz, I talked with Carly Fiorina, I talked with Ben Carson. We talked to everybody that was there with the exception, I think, of Chris Christie. And I asked each of them because they all said, you know, well, we're giving it a serious consideration. We probably, you know, I said, what will be the motivating factor? What will be the final decision, the final piece of the puzzle in your decision-making process? And so the one I did not speak to, I said I didn't talk to Chris Christie. I didn't talk to Rick Perry this time around. I have in the past. But Governor Rick Perry from down in Texas is under indictment right now. There are criminal charges against him down in Texas. Now, they're silly. They're nonsense. They're absolute rubbish. But they are nonetheless pending. He had asked if they could go ahead and dismiss these. His attorneys had petitioned, and apparently the judge has decided, you know what? The criminal case can continue. We are not going to toss this out. Now, it would have been more convenient for Perry, obviously, to have it tossed out. But I think ultimately he will be cleared. He will absolutely be cleared here. There's not even it's really, really a lame case. It's a politically motivated case. We won't go through the details again. But they had hoped the case could be tossed out. They say, no, they're going to go ahead and hear it. Now, here's the interesting part. And this is where I think the Republicans may be able to do better in 2016 than they have in the past, is Rick Perry said, look, this criminal case is not going to slow me down. I am giving serious consideration to running. I'm not going to stop. If you remember when he was arrested for this, when he had to turn himself in and have his little mugshot taken and all, they did a couple of things that were kind of funny. First of all, they put out a T-shirt as a fundraiser. They put out a T-shirt with his mugshot on it. And then he immediately went off to New Hampshire or Iowa or both and continued with his campaign effort. And he's not going to allow himself to be slowed down. He's been probably more direct than most that he intends to run. There is a certain limit on what they can say in order to stay within the scope of the law, but he's made it pretty clear. And he said he's going to continue anyway. But that's not the part that makes me think the Republicans have a good shot. The part that makes me think the Republicans could actually put something together in a winning manner in 2016 is that they are working together. There are 18, 20, 22, depending on who you count. There's a whole slew of people that genuinely want to be president of the United States and are going to try to do it. Right? Now, a whole lot of those will fall out, and by the time we get to the Iowa caucus next year, there'll be 7 or 8. There will not be 20. But right now, while all those people are still in the race, Rick Perry had sent out something that said, hey, if this case continues, doesn't matter. Isn't going to change my plans. It's not going to slow me down. If I decide to run for president, I'm running for president. And here's what made it unique. Scott Walker, who is the governor of Wisconsin and a likely candidate, could be running against Rick Perry for the nomination, tweeted out, the prosecution of my friend, Governor Perry, is outrageous and sets a dangerous precedent. Hashtag stand with Rick. And the list goes on. Senator Ted Cruz wrote support in a Facebook post. A whole bunch of the other candidates wrote nice things supporting Rick Perry in this endeavor. Nobody's going after him, trying to knock him down, tear him down. And so I thought, isn't that unique? Isn't that great? The Republicans, while each one of them individually would like to win, are not going to go the low road. They are not going to go the cheap route. They are supporting their fellow Republican. That bodes well. Now, I mentioned Scott Walker in there. Scott Walker has suddenly shot to the front. The media has been giving him attention They were kind of excited. I was excited. He did a nice job. I had a chance to meet. I had not met Scott Walker prior to the Iowa Freedom Summit. I got a chance to spend a little time, chit-chat with him out back, and very nice guy. Very nice man, and an interesting approach. He is a brilliant guy and yet maintains somewhat of a blue-collar way about him, which, of course, you have to, coming out of a place like Wisconsin. He may be, and this is the one thing everybody says, this is not just Tim Constantine suggesting this, he may be the one that can most effectively bring the core conservative values that motivate the base of the Republican Party, but do so without alienating mainstream Republicans, independents, and some conservative Democrats. He may be that guy. We'll see. But that's what an awful lot of folks think right now. He was dynamite out there in Iowa, and he's given a couple of speeches since. And so he's got a leadership committee, a new PAC, a new political action committee, and they've already put out an advertisement. They put out an ad called Our American Revival. And it describes Barack Obama as a failed leader. But it also takes a poke at Hillary Clinton. Think about this. We are in January of 2015. January of 2015. And so let's see, we got till January. Next January is 12 months. And then you've got another 11 months or 10 months after the 10 months, I guess. So you've got 22 months until if Scott Walker were the nominee and Hillary Clinton were the nominee, they would be on the ballot against each other. 22 months in advance, Scott Walker is already taking it to Hillary Clinton. And he says, the advertisement here in his political action committee says, America can't stop this by looking to the past or for answers in Washington, D.C. And when they say those words, they show a picture of Hillary Clinton. It goes on and says, to reclaim our destiny, we must turn to bold, fresh, and new ideas from those incubators of reform, the states. That, of course, and then it has a picture of Scott Walker there. He's smiling, shaking hands, doing what he does. So, and let me put this in perspective. This little 2-minute ad came out yesterday, Wednesday. The PAC was only announced on Tuesday. So if you don't think they have hit the ground running to run for president of the United States, I don't know what it does mean. Scott Walker has a well-oiled machine. He has run and won for governor of the state of Wisconsin 3 times in the last 4 years because of the recall effort. He understands running a campaign. He is perpetually running a campaign. And the idea that he's now going to shift into gear to run one nationwide, keep right on doing what he's doing, that's not far-fetched at all. These folks are ready to rock and roll. So keep your eye on Scott Walker. I was with a group of folks today, and they asked, Tim, who do you think? As of today, realizing a lot changes in 22 months, but as of today, who do you think will be the nominee? And I said Scott Walker. I think he – don't get me wrong. Oh, my gosh, we got the senator on the phone? I take it back. Oh, he's not paying attention to me right now. Coming up in just a minute, by the way, Senator Rand Paul will join us. Senator Rand Paul will join us talking about the auditing the Fed. But I think Scott Walker is a very, very viable candidate. And if you had, they did a great piece on television the other night where they had a stack of poker chips and you had to allot them. You didn't have to bet everything on one, but you could divvy up who your bets were. And I would say I'd put I would put some on Rand Paul, but I would put some on Scott Walker. I'd put probably more on Scott Walker than anybody else right now. So, and finally, before we go to the phone and talk to the senator, let's talk about Mitt Romney. And the question has been, why is he considering running again? Because, he for 2 years has said, I am not running. I'm done. It's not my turn. It's somebody else's turn. And yet now, well, and I'll tell you the reason. I honestly believe this because among Republicans, I've heard this sentence repeated over and over and over. Gosh, don't you wish Romney won? Man, look at that. And can you imagine how things would be different if Romney had won 2 years ago? 3 years now? 2 years. And I thought, if I hear that, can you imagine how many times a day he hears that, if people keep saying to you, oh, God, life would be better if you were the president, well, you're going to believe it after a while.